Greetings all, welcome to another session here of Tuzi Talks. We're going to continue our discussion of Cloud and Janes and Hamayan's text literacy instruction for English language learners. Today we're going to be focusing on the section in the text regarding connecting reading and writing. Oh, by the way, if you are interested in the text, that's the one right over there. You can certainly go online and purchase that at any bookstore online, Amazon, Barnes & Nobles, or you can order it from your local library, local bookstore. As I said, today we're going to be talking about connecting reading and writing and some of the strategies for connecting reading and writing for language learners. Some things that we should consider regarding the connecting of these two. One is that some people believe that separating reading and writing is kind of artificial and that it shouldn't be done. Typically in schools you'll see that there's a reading time and then there's a writing time and they try to separate them. The authors here don't believe that's actually true and that it's better to have them combined. I don't know that I agree with them. I do see that there are times where you just have a reading time, you just have a writing time. At the same time, I recognize that, I sat there as I was reading the text. I put this little note in there. No, I disagreed while I was reading. So, I do see what they're saying with regard to this whole connecting of reading and writing. You want to be able to think as you read and be able to see those connections and be able to interact in the writing process. The next thing that they talked about is the advantage of combining these skills means that both skills get stronger as they practice them together. And I would agree that allowing the back and forth of these is going to encourage the strength for both of them. This idea is also very much aligned with something called pushed output production or pushed out production. In pushed output production, students, as they learn what they learn, they are immediately given opportunity to take advantage of those things that they've learned and practice. So they take stuff in, but then they turn around and they push those things out. Oftentimes these are used with older learners who already have cognitive abilities, and so giving them the opportunity to do this very quickly is going to be a good thing for them, and it has been shown in research to be very effective at helping students move along the learning process for language. Next, it does build up the oral skills because you're connecting the writing and the reading. So in addition to them just taking in this information, they're going to start writing that down, and their writing skills, not their oral skills, their writing skills are going to be improved as they move along. And lastly, you're going to be able to connect to the curriculum. You're going to be able to look and see the stuff that are being in the curriculum, and you can connect not only the reading but also the writing requirements to it. And you should be able to increase student interest because you're dealing with different content and you're not just focusing on one particular skill. So strategies for beginners. One of the things that they talked about is mimic writing, basically copying what other people have done. And we do things like that in terms of dictation, where you copy from what your teacher has said, in other words, listening and writing. They also mentioned doing something called copying from the teacher, copying good writers do. I love this idea, a parent notebook. When my children were in school overseas in Asia, that's a book that they had, and every day the teacher would write on the board, this is what your homework is, this is a question that you have to ask your parents, and they were required to write all that down in their notebook and take it home with them. Now, obviously, they were learning a second language, so they had to write down in that second language and take it home. It was a great opportunity for them to practice and also for them to learn about the ways of writing. It was an excellent idea. They also suggest that you start small, which I would absolutely agree with. You always build up from the basics. Be practical and be interesting. Much like this parental notebook, it was very practical. It was something that they needed to ask their teachers if they were going to be able to go on a school trip or be able to go do something special or to get their homework done. Lastly, it should be something that's interesting. Remember the 96% rule when reading and writing. You're going to give students something to read or give them something to copy. It should be that the students know 96% of the words. Actually, I think it's 97% of the words. Knowing less than that means that you don't understand what the text is about. And I know some of you are thinking, 96%, 97%, that's amazing. They've done the research. And if you want to go look up vocabulary experts and the research that they've done, those are the numbers that are there. So make sure that the majority of the words that you're dealing with, they already know. The other thing you want to remember is that a lot of people are convinced they can't do it. So part of your job is to convince them they can succeed. Convince them that they can do the work. And in fact, that they can. I always tell my students, look, if a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old can learn another language, certainly you can as well. It's not difficult. It's just going to take time so that they can succeed. There are times you're going to have students, you need to force them, in a sense. You need to push them over. You need to give them no other out but to do that. And when they succeed, they're going to be very grateful that you've shown them that their beliefs were wrong. Last thing here that I put up here is that you can use the modes as far as teaching them how to write. You can give them a form of a letter, teach them how to do letter writing. Or if you're going to be doing other types of writing, give them the kind of a template or a form. Use the modes, and the modes being things like, compare, contrast, informative, instructional, that type of thing. You also want to do writing that's, not only imitative, where they're copying, but also intensive, where they focus on form every now and again. You talk to them about things like cohesive devices and how to begin and end a paragraph and those types of things. You can also have responsive writing, where students are not only reading, but they're responding to what other people and or other students do. This is going to be culturally difficult for some groups because they were told and taught to save face. You don't insult somebody. And they may think that correcting someone is a form of an insult, so they're not going to do that. But that's definitely a plus if you can get some responsive type reading. That way they can banter back and forth. And you can also be a model and show them the proper way of giving constructive criticism. For the intermediate language learners, one of the things that Claudius and Hamayan had talked about is this language experience approach. Now, I've never heard of this one before either, although I do understand what it's about, and I certainly have used this concept. I just never heard it said this way before. Basically, the language experience approach is what I can say, I can write. What I can write, I can read. What I can read, I can understand. What I can write, and what other people can write for me to read. So it's all the basic things that are going on. If I can say it, I can write it. If I can write it, I can read it. If I can read it, I can understand what other people are going through. So it's very personal in nature. I'll give you a typical example. When I'm beginning a writing class for students who don't know how to write, I typically ask them to write about themselves, write about their family, write about their favorite hobby, write about, some special, it's a personal thing. And oftentimes they do begin, and their writing sounds very oral. No problem at all. Start with what they know and move forward from there. And so that's this language experience approach. Another way or another strategy is community-based or family-based approaches. What I would also call task-based approaches, where you provide community outreach opportunities. Things like maybe going shopping or to interact with people within their community, or family-based approaches. Things like cooking or getting directions or interviewing a neighbor, interviewing a family member, regarding some event that happened in their lives. In other words, it is similar to language experience, but it's trying to connect to what they know as they learn to write for the academy. And task-based language teaching also tries to stress a task that's practical, like, for example, shopping or getting directions or applying for a job or how to sit for an interview, how to ask for help in school, or any number of things that would be a task that students are supposed to complete. Those are for more upper level types of students. Some other intermediate stories are things like storytelling. Things like telling ghost stories would be an interesting way, or telling stories on pictures and videos. So you give students a bunch of pictures, and they need to create a story out of it. You give them a series of video clips, and they need to put that together and make a story out of it. Kind of like if you've seen, like on YouTube, where they take old movies, they kill the audio, and then overlay audio to make a new story as to whatever these guys are trying to say. But storytelling is a lot of fun, can be very creative, and also allows the students opportunities just to make up things as they go. Lastly, we can have students as authors. Obviously, we want to show them a model. We want to show them what it's like to be an author, so we want to be able to do that. But at the same time, we can look at the students and say, hey, I want you to be the author. I want you to write something so that we can publish it. And you may have a place that you want to publish it. And of course, maybe it's just your school or your school newsletter, your school newspaper. But it could be something even bigger than that. That you can have to give to your students to show them. If they realize that they're writing for publication, now all of a sudden there's a lot more pressure involved, but there's a lot more, hey, I want to succeed in doing this. Hey, I can really do this. Writing for publication. Lastly, this whole idea of drawing and writing. Drawing is the precursor to writing. It's very much the case. I have seen with students where they enjoy drawing and they're drawing and wanting to tell stories, and then they draw and they tell you the story, and of course you can then take that to the next step and say, okay, write your story down so that we can understand what the pictures are trying to do. And lastly, making it personal. Again, you as an author, if students are going to be the author, it's going to be more personal for them. They're going to have more of a vested interest in it. Last idea here for intermediate students are dialogue journals. In other words, they're going to be writing about what they're learning, going to be writing about what they're feeling. It's kind of like a free writing or journaling. Every day they're going to be reflecting about what they've learned, what they didn't learn, struggles or whatever. It can be very personal, but it's a good opportunity for them to connect what they've read with what they're writing. So definitely there are benefits that are going on there. It also provides them more practice opportunities because they're writing just for the journal. They're not necessarily writing for a grade. It's may even possible that you could take this information and decide that you're going to use this as a discussion group. Again, depending on what the content is and how personal it is and whether people actually want to share some of those thoughts. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, but it's definitely an opportunity to continue a discussion. For advanced level students, there are a number of things that we can do. One, of course, is critical reading. That's where you're going to be examining what's going on, what are the suppositions, what are things that are not being said, who's the actual intended audience, what is the actual intended meaning that's going on. You can also have them practice responding to things so that they learn how to properly respond and politely respond. How to ask a question, how to give a comment that's constructive and you're not hurting someone. You can also talk about the traits that are involved in writing. They include things like ideas and organization and word choice, sentence fluency, and conventions. And so those the traits that you can focus on, you're just more of a structural elements that you're looking at, and have them look at those and see which ones are successful and which ones aren't. And so, again, I've already talked about practical reading and practice feedback. You can do different types of feedback. You can do peer-to-peer, you can do peer-to-teacher. Research indicates that students who are in an ESL program prefer teacher feedback over peer feedback, but it's definitely an opportunity for them to learn about providing proper feedback when they're doing this. That's all I have for this section. I do thank you for stopping by. If you do have any questions, you can certainly drop me an email or shoot me a link down below. And I do thank you for stopping by. We'll talk to you later now. Bye-bye.